White Americans do not have culture or a true sense of identity, and this is why we're seeing a rise in groups like MAGA. The great majority of these white people who came to America were undesirables and decided to abandon their cultures and language in order to become white in America. And so the rise in white supremacy and right-wing ideology is not surprising when you consider that whiteness and consumerism is all these people know. They did not hold on to their original languages, customs, and traditions because capitalism was calling. And they prioritized and valued capital over culture. And now look at them. The Trump administration is pushing out propaganda saying this is our country, this is our home, these immigrants can't come in. But these people are so far removed from their actual backgrounds that they forget that their ancestors came here on boats, that their ancestors came here with nothing, that upon arriving to America, their ancestors were treated like dirt. And a lot of them are experiencing a cognitive dissonance that you or I could never understand. These people are wielding Italian, Polish, Irish last names. And even though some of them will go so far as to claim these backgrounds, the backgrounds don't claim them. Because you can say your family is Italian, but what happens when they go to Italy? How can you claim to be Italian when you don't speak the language? Comparatively, so many African Americans do not know where in Africa their ancestors came from. But the crazy thing is, a lot of European Americans don't know this either. And it's not due to slavery. It's due to their families completely abandoning this part of themselves. And when you actually think about the reality of this, it is insane. Abandoning your entire background, your lineage, not knowing where your family came from, all due to whiteness. And these people are so angry because they're lost. They don't know who they are. And whiteness is a hallucination. It's not real. We are living in a time where white supremacy is clearly a fiction. And what a lot of them are grappling with right now is that we are no longer in the 20th century, where whiteness was enough for you to succeed in the world, for you to get that job, to obtain capital. And this is all they know. This is all they were taught to know. Because if you ask any one of them what American culture truly is, they wouldn't actually be able to tell you.
Greetings everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel once again. And again, if it's the first time that you're coming across my content, kindly don't forget to hit the like, subscribe and the share button. And to my returning subscribers, I would also like to thank you and still encourage you to interact with this video through liking, commenting and sharing. Well, in today's episode, I'll be addressing this question: do whites have culture? Well, there are different variants answers to this question, and kindly watch the rest of this clip to get what others are thinking about it as I come with my commentaries at the end of it.
Why are Americans the only ones who are denied their culture? I've never heard a European question themselves on the existence of Australian culture or Canadian culture. I've never heard a European ask themselves if Argentinian or Jamaican or Brazilian culture exists, because it's evident. But when it comes to America, it's not so evident to them. And I don't know if I've ever said this before, but I think it's about time for me to say it. The debate of the existence of American culture is one that is had uniquely in Europe. Europeans love to question the existence of American culture in a way that I have not seen other groups of people do so before. When I asked my Japanese friend if American culture exists, they looked incredulous at me because it was obvious. Obviously, American culture exists. Not only is it obvious that American culture exists, but American culture has completely changed the cultural landscape of Japan. The same thing goes for Korea. Denying the existence of American culture is nonsensical, because there is no one group of people without a culture. 2, denying the existence of American culture because American culture is now so globalized and so widely adopted on the sole premise that because everybody else adopts American culture, that American culture becomes null and void, is such a nonsensical, reductive argument that it surprises me every time somebody says it so confidently in my comment section. If you think American culture doesn't exist anymore because everybody acts, talks, watches, listens to American music, movies, by the way, all of that is a part of culture, then I will extend this logic to pizza. Everybody eats pizza. It's no longer Italian. I will extend this type of logic to pasta. Everybody eats pasta. There's pasta dishes from all over the world now. Is it no longer Italian because other people from all over the world eat pasta and pizza? No, it's nonsensical. It's reductive. It's a fallacious argument. It makes no sense. And no matter how many examples you give them, they will never see eye to eye with you, because it makes them feel good that Americans don't have culture. Because let's be honest, Europe as a continent is no longer as culturally relevant. I guess that hurts them.
What is white culture?
Oh my God, that sounded so American. There is no white culture. There is no black culture. Just because you Americans don't have your own culture doesn't mean the rest of the world hasn't. When you maybe just visit a different continent, maybe go to Europe or maybe go to Africa. Alone in Africa, there are 54 different countries, over 1,400 different languages, and you umbrella term it with black people culture. How disrespectful. Come to Europe. Germany has a completely different culture from Spain or just Switzerland. Everything is different here. You are the guys not having your own culture and, I don't know, appropriating it. And yes, many of white cultures were in the past forced on other people and all of that crap. No doubt about it. But just oppression within white people. I am Swabian. I am from South Germany. But during Nazi Germany, Hitler decided that the perfect German culture is Bavarian. Therefore, he suppressed all of the different cultures within Germany, because Germany is made of 100 different cultures and people, all Germanic people. And he suppressed all of it. That's why all of the world thinks about lederhosen and dirndl when thinking about Germany. You are not the only ones, but you're the only ones constantly crying about it. And I hate it. Just leave your country once and learn a little bit about the rest of the world.
The idea that Europeans have culture, that European immigrants to the United States have culture, but that white Americans in the United States do not have culture is an example of how whiteness as an ideology has been foundational in the construction of our social reality. A culture is a system for living, a way of life that is shared by a group of people. And that can sound uncomfortably vague and open-ended, but that's a useful way for thinking about it because culture is very messy, very fluid, and difficult to pin down. Now, one of the things that you will hear on the internet from unfortunate people is the idea of white culture. Sometimes they'll call it Western culture, but it's basically the same thing. And the thing is, this does not exist. This is a racist talking point developed by people who are under the illusion that there is a common cultural system that unites all of the countries of Western Europe, that all of the legitimate members of that cultural system are white, and that those who are not white that reside in those territories are invaders or threats to that cultural system. Usually people bring this up when they are trying to ascribe a particular cultural product or an idea to white folks, and this is a fiction that is bought into by the kind of idiots that think that the fall of the Roman Empire was brought about by feminism. That being said, once we add specificity to this, we can then have a productive conversation. So whereas white culture doesn't exist, white American culture within the United States does, because now we're talking about a specific population and their way of navigating life. And white American culture is a point of convergence for a variety of socio-cultural, economic, and political forces that will shape every aspect of your life and inform things like how you worship a god, because it's assumed that you will and that it will only be one. How you relate to your government, how you express yourself, the language that you speak, how you speak that language, how you dress, how you spend your money on recreational activities, and what recreational activities are deemed appropriate for someone in your demographic. And the list goes on and on and on. And all of this creates a standard against which everyone is measured. And some people can meet that standard rather easily, and a lot of folks can't, including a lot of white folks who may be queer, disabled, or poor. And when you don't meet a standard, you have to adjust, which is why I go by Gabe or Gabriel instead of Gabriel, because white American English is the linguistic standard. And so the worst thing that we can do is pretend that white American culture doesn't exist. It absolutely does, and it has negatively affected all of us, including those who uphold it.
If your parents and your grandparents were born in the United States of America, I really feel bad for you. Like, you really got no culture. This does not apply to you if you are black, though. Like, let's really break this shit down. This shit is called a melting pot for a reason. America has no culture. Different people come into the United States, they embed their culture into the United States, and then other people pick up on it. Like, the only culture the United States really has is being obese, watching football, and drinking beer. Like, it's no music with cultural significance. Like, Africans, we got the Afro beats. Black Americans, they got the R&B, hip-hop, and all that shit. Pretty sure most genres of music came from African Americans. Now, there's no hate to y'all at all, but I just feel bad. Like, I don't know what it feels like to have zero culture. Like, y'all are bumping Taylor Swift and eating Kraft mac and cheese at family reunions. My nigga, like, this shit is crazy. Like I said, though, ain't nothing wrong with it. Me personally, that's just not how I would want to live my life. I had to keep reiterating that there's no hate because TikTok be on my ass. But you feel me? Shout out to my pure breed Americans, you know what I'm saying? Like, y'all rep y'all country very hard.
Do white people have cousins? And as a black person that grew up with white people and has white friends, I rarely hear white people talk about their cousins. And there was a post I saw in which this man was talking about his cousin that he kept specifying my second cousin.
My second cousin, second cousin, but I don't.
And I put up a comment that said, it's funny to me how white people specify second cousin. I don't even know what that means. My cousins are my cousins. It's an interesting cultural difference. And subsequently, the comments proved my point. I got an organization chart. I got somebody saying that your second cousins are not really your cousins. I got another person saying, well, you don't know what it means. And I said, well, me saying I don't even know what that means is a cultural difference you guys don't understand. Regardless of that fact, I do understand the difference in communal-based cultures and societies versus individualistic cultures and societies. And most of the Europeans that came over here and created the American way were very individualistic and created this capitalistic society that is America. Black people, no matter where we were in the world, have always been communal, and especially as a byproduct of slavery and apartheid and colonialism here, our kinfolk were the only safe space we had. So even if we weren't actually related, we were a family unit. And so we're all familial in that way. And I have never in my life, I put up a video last week or 2 weeks ago talking about the difference between white people calling their half siblings. You'll never find a black person saying half siblings or this is my second, third, fourth cousin. No, they're just your cousins. And there's a lot of comments that were very telling about like, I don't even know my first cousins. I don't even know my second cousins. And I'm like, my second cousins are my mom's cousins. And their kids are my third cousins and subsequently and so forth and so on. But we grew up together. We all have the same great-grandmother. We have our grandmothers are sisters. We grew up as a family unit. I spent time with my cousins. We have family reunions. Like, there's so many things that I think white people don't know about black culture and vice versa. And the cousin one is really telling because I'm like, where are your cousins? Where are your cousins? You don't have like aunties and uncles that aren't blood related to you that you call auntie and uncle? Yeah, it's very interesting. It's very interesting.
America doesn't have its own culture, and I know that hurts your delicate little feelings to hear me say that to you, but there isn't a uniquely American thing that you can point to that can't be traced down to one of the little ingredients in this melting pot. Jazz, for instance, is a uniquely American art form that comes from the black community. Everything, by the way, everything comes from the black community.
So are you saying that black Americans aren't American? Because at first you deny the existence of American culture. But then you actually give a really good example of something that is uniquely American. It's uniquely black American, but black Americans are American. And by denying the existence of American culture, you are, without knowing, I think, denying the existence of black American culture. And I know what people are going to say. They're going to say, well, America doesn't actually have a culture, it has subcultures. Tell me a country this does not apply to. And then people are going to say, American culture does not exist because American culture was influenced by other cultures. Tell me one culture that this does not apply to. Are you going to deny the existence of Jamaican culture, Brazilian culture, or even the country that I come from, Mauritius? If you're going to deny our cultures because it was influenced by other cultures, there is no culture that is not influenced by other cultures. And if you do that to American culture, you must apply it to Brazilian culture, and Jamaican culture, and Haitian culture, and Mauritian culture. Fact of the matter is, every single American that lives in the United States of America right now has not broken historical continuity with their ancestors. Now, I don't know who the guy is that used Stitch. I have never seen him in my life, and he said some pretty outlandish stuff. But so have you. Black Americans have contributed so much to American culture. I would even go as far as saying that Black American culture is one of the most influential cultures in this world today. And by denying the existence of American culture, you're either saying that Black Americans aren't American and therefore Black American culture isn't American, or you're saying that Black American culture does not exist. Black Americans are woven into the fabric of America, and once you start to try to pull the threads of this fabric falls apart.
We need to stop saying that white people don't have culture because it actually helps white supremacy.
So you said a lot, but you're kind of missing the entire point of us saying white people don't have a culture. The point of white supremacy is to be cultureless. Yes, and that point you are right, but they did that for a purpose. Whiteness in itself having no culture attached to it is so far what has allowed them to make themselves the default or the standard in many spaces. I tend to look at this through the lens of media because that is where my studies primarily in. It is because whiteness has no culture that they're able to mold themselves into other people's cultures, which is why we get so many Egyptian movies with white people as the entire cast, which is why we get so many kung fu movies where they are the center. But nowadays, because whiteness has not allowed itself to be attached to any culture, it is now damaging. Let's look at Disney, for example. At first, it started with princesses like Jasmine, Tiana. Mulan's not a princess, but Mulan is marketing-wise a princess. Because they tied culture to them, there is no way to make them anything else but the culture and race that they are. They cannot be white. And now, with The Little Mermaid, we are seeing a step further. And that is the idea that if there is no cultural significance to a character, whiteness does not have to be the default. And that in itself leaves so many princesses that we would know to be white now up for grabs, because now we can no longer treat white as the default. And because of that, you see so many white people trying to scramble for Ariel to be attached to a culture that is predominantly filled by white people, when nowhere in the movie was she. So no, pointing out that white supremacy is built on the fact that white people have no culture and thus are able to adapt to any other culture does not help them, at least not anymore. It would only help if we were still abiding by the idea that whiteness is the standard and the default. It only helps them if we keep acting as if something has to have a culture to not be white. But now we're entering a space where culture or no culture, that person does not have to be white. So yeah, whiteness bites itself in the ass by being cultureless. That does not help white supremacy.
Do white people have culture?
Stereotypically, not really.
I'm Russian. Oh, you're Russian. Okay.
Not very much culture.
Okay, so would you say that white culture in Russia is different from white culture in America?
Oh, of course, absolutely. Yeah.
So really, there is no such thing as just white culture?
Yeah, I would say so.
I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know what you could define it as.
That is pretty true.
A lot of stereotypes about
McDonald's?
American boys.
McDonald's?
No,
hot dogs?
I knew this question was coming, and I waited until someone asked it nicely to respond. So no, there's no such thing as white pride, in part because there is no white culture. You can have pride based on your ethnicity, like Scottish, German, Irish. You can even have regional pride, like Southern pride. These things usually apply to your cultural identity, like how you grew up, etc. And I had some people argue, well, other colors have pride, and no, they don't. Chicano, Latino pride, Asian pride, those are not colors. The one exception is Black pride. And that's because they've had a unique experience no one else has. Black Americans were robbed of their culture. They don't know where they come from. Two Black Americans meet. They could have come from warring African tribes. They don't know. What they do know is their American experience was similar. In other words, the thing that connects them is the color of their skin and how society has treated them as a result. You also have to consider where the terms white pride and black pride originate. White pride was coined by white supremacists. Black pride is from the Black Power and Civil Rights movement. So one represents superiority and hate, and the other a fight for equality.
America is a shitty country with no culture. I know that sounds crazy as fuck to say, but back when I was in high school, my uncle came from Kenya to visit us for 3 months. Sometimes he would do African shit here in America and it would look crazy as hell. I remember one time I came home from school and I see him in my neighbor's garage. I'm like, what the fuck is Unc doing? Is he tweaking? So I walk up to my neighbor's garage, my uncle in there talking to my neighbor. Mind you, I've never talked to this neighbor in my life. I've waved at the man, but we never had a conversation. My uncle did that to everybody in the neighborhood. My uncle was treating my neighborhood like the village and people were fucking with him. The whole neighborhood loved my uncle. But my favorite thing my uncle did when he was out here was his last day in America, he brought me and my family to a fancy ass restaurant. I don't even know how we found it because he's not from here. But it was like $70 steaks, $30 desserts.
My uncle paid the whole bill. When we left the restaurant, the waiter came chasing after him. He's like, "Sir, I'm sorry. Did you have an issue with my service?" My African-ass uncle, he's like, "No, it was excellent." The waiter was like, "Then why didn't you give us a tip?" My uncle literally laughed in his face and said, "I don't believe in giving tips." He just walked off and we went home.
It's gonna get me a lot of hate, but no, white Americans don't have culture. I am not exaggerating when I say every element of white culture has been stolen from people of color. That is why white people get so angry and jealous of minority groups, because they have cookouts, they have big and fun celebrations, they dance, they have amazing food. What do we have? We have processed meat. We don't use a lot of seasoning, right? Because I think a lot of people are scared of food being too ethnic, so it's often bland or overcooked. We have music, but a lot of the music that we listen to has actually been stolen from other cultures and people. Elvis, for example, or even country music, which was founded by black people. Oh, but a lot of white Americans are Christians and they celebrate Christmas. Right, but that was originally a pagan holiday. And Christians actually persecuted pagans for celebrating their religion, and now we stole that and Easter, and that's our culture. The craziest thing is when we do actually have celebrations, white families are often very so these celebrations are very small and exclusive. A lot of white people don't dance or they don't have rhythm, so there's really no way of bonding with new people or joining together in movement and community. And I genuinely believe that a lot of white people's racism stems from jealousy, 100%.
Well, white culture is something that has long been believed to be non-existent, and if you've watched the rest of this video, you'll notice that most people are claiming that white people lack a culture, something that they identify with. Yes, to some extent these people are right, but again, when you go and look deep into it, you get to understand the reason as to why most of the individuals, as you've watched in the previous clips, have this feeling that white Americans don't have culture. First, the thing that we need to note here is that these people are talking out of resentment. You'll notice that most of the black Americans and other people of color that are currently located in the United States are descendants of former slaves. And you'll notice that they have this deep history of slavery and prejudice that most of them are still experiencing to this time. And so they have this notion and feelings that they are, at least they know where they came from, and they are, despite of the fact that some of them usually deny their origin, and this can be forgiven due to the dark past that most of them and their ancestors went through. It's quite common for this feeling of resentment to be expressed by these black individuals and other people of colors who claim that white people or white Americans don't have color. Actually, don't have culture. Actually, when you go back into history, you notice that these whites have culture. And when you come to see that the founders and builders of the United States, you notice that most European immigrants who moved into the country were forced to drop their ethnic identities. And from these ethnic identities, you notice that there are different ethnic or tribal backgrounds that these Europeans came from. And some of these backgrounds include Italians, French, Balkans, Irish, Germans, name all of them, Greek. So these are the ethnic cultures that these individuals came from. But you notice that once they moved into the United States, they were forced to drop their ethnic identities and grouped as one political ethnic majority known as the white. And this move was politically motivated, and it had its importance to these individuals as it actually described the type of rights, opportunities, and treatment that these individuals would receive compared to other individuals who were seen to be lesser humans, that is, the slaves and other people of colors. So these people were bundled into one group and labeled white. So you notice that after having this, after every generation, these individuals again totally managed to forget their ethnic rules and identities and generally adopted the American consumer culture, which is what most people right now identify with America. And so given the huge factor and role that America has played in influencing major world cultures, it's quite notable that most individuals will believe that whites don't have any culture, as their identity currently right now is mostly focused around consumerism and capitalism, in which they get to ruthlessly push and identify with it worldwide. But again, you'll notice that these whites actually have a culture, as this culture has had major impact across the world. And culture is not only related to food or music that an individual produces. It encompasses a lot of things that are specifically unique to a given group of individuals. Things like art, music, humor, dances, spirituality, languages. These are some of the things that are very unique and identify a given ethnicity, and it's what is generally labeled as culture. As for the white Americans, most of them dropped their original, that is, their ethnic identities once they settled into the United States, and in doing so, they have acquired this whiteness, which cannot be identified as an ethnic identity. Rather, it will be identified as a political identity, which also comes with its attached benefits to the individuals who are generally categorized as being white. And so the expressions that you've seen these individuals in this clip giving about white Americans lacking culture, it's true to some extent, but again, when you go deeper into it, you'll get to understand that these individuals are trying to express something deeper, or something that they've keenly observed, or something that they're reacting to based on the treatment in which they have received from the white community in the United States. And again, based on the major impact that the US culture, or let's say the white culture, has had on many countries worldwide, it's very common for people to assume that there is no culture existing, as this supposed white culture has acted as a canvas and is considered to be normal in many parts across the world. And you notice that once something is considered to be normal, most people will look at it like it doesn't have any impact, or it doesn't exist as a culture, as everyone looks at it as something that is expected and something that should always be there. And this in general has affected the notion that most people have about the white Americans, as when you compare to what they call culture and what other people call culture or identify as culture, these are totally different worlds that don't relate in any way. And this actually comes from the fact that the white culture doesn't have a basic origin, like from an ethnic point of view, but it's a political assimilation of individuals from different cultures and ethnicities that have come together to form the white American society as we get to know it right now. So, are the reasoning that you've heard from the previous individuals in the clip still valid after the description that I've given, or do you think that it's true that white culture doesn't exist? Well, kindly don't forget to share your thoughts and ideas with me in the comment section. And this marks the end of this episode. Thank you once again, and see you in the next one.